So you've had a really fascinating journey into Web3, really from for traditional finance, from firms like Lehman Brothers, Barclays. You also were part of building the Consensus Fintech team, and now you've founded Generative Ventures. So maybe just like walk me through some of the key moments that shaped your understanding of Web3 and AI, and sort of what got you to the place where you founded Generative Ventures.
I've got a thread that goes through my career, and that thread is curiosity about the frontier of financial systems. And so I grew up doing a bunch of visual arts and building websites and interactive technology as a hobby. And then sort of a more conservative part of building a career has been around financial services, and for a while investment banking, and then on Wall Street and getting involved in things that people thought were highly prestigious and important. Now we all know better. And the combination of these things, the desire to kind of do innovative, creative things with financial systems, it's really a very narrow overlap. There's not a lot of stuff you used to be able to do in that overlap. And there are many more things now that are available, but it's still quite difficult. And so I've just chased the frontier. I've chased novelty and curiosity on this topic. As an aside, novelty search is a very powerful algorithm as compared to optimizing for some particular outcome and creating linear growth. This comes out of the AI literature, where like the novelty search algorithm is actually where you reward the machine for finding solutions that are novel and different rather than finding the solutions that are closer to the goal, ends up outperforming all the time. And so I kind of implemented that in my life. So I went from traditional financial services to I was kind of liberated by the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy in 2008, to founding a robo-advisor in 2010 in New York, when the New York kind of fintech scene just started to get going. And robo-advisors brought Web2 experience to finance, so digitized distribution of finance. And that was my first experience being correct about a market trend that people just hated. People in authority just hated. They thought, why would you want these small accounts? We can't make money on people using digital investing and so on. And I got comfortable with being wrong until things turned around. And so out of robo-advice, I went into I moved to London as part of an equity research job to focus on the neobanking revolution that was happening here. And Revolut, Monzo, Starling companies of that time started to grow really aggressively in Europe, not in the US, because the US doesn't understand banks. The US understands capital markets and loans, but not banks. As an example, Stripe is founded by the Irish brothers. TransferWise founded out of Europe. Revolut founded out of Europe. I mean, we have Chime in the US, but anyway, so London gave me neobanks and paytech and open banking, and that led to embedded finance. But really, what was much more interesting was trying to figure out what the large platform shifts were for changing financial services, and as a result, changing large financial institutions that were publicly traded. That was the day job. And so I started looking at AI, at crypto, and at what today we call mixed reality or spatial computing. At the time was augmented reality and VR in financial services. So for banks, what does it mean if commerce happens in mixed reality? What does it mean if AI is doing all the underwriting? What does it mean if ICOs are a better form of crowdfunding than equity crowdfunding ever was? And so kind of 2017 to 2019, I spent a long time developing frameworks and developing an audience and thinking about this stuff. Today, everyone's a creator. I was one of the earlier fintech creators around this stuff. And that led me to connect with Consensus, where I thought I had kind of the most value to bring with the transition from fintech to DeFi. Kind of the piece that I noticed was that at the time, I think DeFi TVL was somewhere around 500 million. And the thing I noticed was that DeFi was the first sign that you can manufacture financial products on architecture that is not just the old bank stuff. So not portfolio management, core banking, payment networks and so on, but rather large computational blockchains that could render financial instruments through smart contracts. And that was very novel. And I think it came out directly out of the frustration I had building fintechs, which are largely Web2 distribution storefronts that sell the old stuff. So I spent 4 years at Consensus doing a number of roles, but going through sort of the journey on tokenization with enterprise and big banks and enterprise protocols, and then the hard pivot into DeFi with MetaMask's integration of swaps and the build out of portfolio. I had some impact on that team. There are tons of talented people that I partnered with on that, so I can't really take ownership other than leaving comments on a lot of documents. But it was fantastic to see. And, MetaMask grew to 40 million users, which is, I think at the time was like more than any neobank or robo-advisor or anything of that nature, and certainly had more coverage than across countries in the world. And that was fantastic. About 2 years ago, I left to start a venture fund, partly in response to the FTX collapse and sort of the wave of crime and liquidations that happened in 22. And I think a lot of people who are earnestly trying to build in crypto, and I think this is very true for where we are today, have this deep frustration with, how do I put it? There are people who make the game, and then there are people who play the game. And at Consensus, and I think at a number of companies that are more focused on protocols and design of mechanisms and have a sort of philosophical respect for these systems, they're really good at designing the game, but they're not the best at playing it. And the industry has attracted a lot of players, many of whom are willing to win at any cost, and it doesn't feel good. I was trying to find a new direction that made me more connected to the economic activity that was happening in real life. Like, is there a real thing that's going on? And one of the now very obvious large trends in 2023, it was still pretty obvious, but maybe a little bit earlier, was that an enormous amount of economic growth going forward is coming from AI labor, generative labor, and that all the artifacts of that labor are going to be digital. Like AI, yes, you're going to have embodied robots and they will make sandwiches and fold your laundry, but most of the fruits of what AI creates are digital. And Web3 is an architecture for economic ownership and transaction of digital goods. And it comes with a financial sector, DeFi, which is optimized around, a natively digital economy with property rights enforced on chain and so on. And so my thesis was that you've got this machine economy around the corner, whether it's hardware or software, but in all cases, robots are the ones that are making things from now on. And the financial systems underpinning it are likely to be different. You need to manufacture financial products in ways that are different than before, when you had the human modality is the primary way to access it. And so I set up a fund with a partner out of Asia. And our LPs are from all over the world, including a large anchor in Germany called Bertelsmann. Yeah, it's been a fascinating 2 years, seeing how the sausage is made, but also participating in some of the players that are really pushing the edge of the frontier forward, which again is the place where I like to find myself.